You look like an airline pilot because he's ready to take off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Right. Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
Okay, we're good. It's time to
we have
call
four
this.
here.
All right. Thank you, Wes. Time to call the meeting to order. Call to order and a roll call from staff, please.
Okay, let me see here. Member Wheeler,
Here.
Member Jacobson is absent. Member Miles,
Here.
Member Sperlingwood, absent. Member Rockwell,
Here.
here, and Member Davis, absent. Member Crow,
Here.
Okay.
Member Fultz,
Here.
and Chair Porter.
Here. And member Jacobson just came on board.
Came on. Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
All right. Next item is adoption of the consent items. Do I hear a motion for that?
Mr. Chair, I have some comments on the consent, one of the consent items.
Okay, go ahead, Wes. Member Wheeler?
Thank you so much. I appreciate staff's putting together these minutes for these meetings, and I know we try to keep them succinct and to the point, but the board covered a lot of issues and a lot of ground at our January 26th workshop, and I don't think that the minutes that were provided to us capture all that we talked about. I have a brief paragraph that I'd like to have substituted for those minutes for the board's consideration. And if I may read that, Mr. Chair?
Yes, by all means, go ahead.
Chair Porter and members Wheeler, Jacobson, Fultz, and Crow each expressed concerns with the need for the utility to focus less on burning gas and more on renewable energy, specifically solar, and to focus on demand management, specifically conservation, in the city's next integrated resource plan, the IRP. Member Wheeler mentioned the potential significant revenues from electric vehicles. Chair Porter mentioned that we need to continue focusing on making UF an electric customer. All members expressed an interest in the advisory board being more actively involved in the drafting of the next IRP. Chair Porter had prepared and presented written notes for the meeting. Members Wheeler and Fultz volunteered to also write up their notes, and Member Crow volunteered to collect and edit the notes into a single document for our next workshop. The written notes from Chair Porter and Member Fultz and Wheeler are attached as backups to these minutes. One more sentence. Member Wheeler asked about the status of the board's long-delayed energy resource policy plan, ? Staff assured board members that they are working on it. That's all I have, Mr. Chair, as a proposed report of our minutes from the January 26th meeting.
Would you care to make a motion to amend the minutes to have that included? Is that how we do that?
I so move.
Do we hear a second?
Second the motion.
All right. Any public comment out from the citizens on that?
No, sir, there is no public comment at this time. Thank you for asking.
All right. We'll go ahead and have a vote for that. If staff would call out the roll for the vote.
Member Wheeler,
Aye.
Member Jacobson,
Aye.
Member Miles,
Aye.
Member Crow,
Aye.
Member Fultz,
Did she say Fultz? Yes.
Aye.
Yeah.
Thanks.
okay, and Chair Porter.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for the board's indulgence. Robin, I'll get a copy, electronic copy of this to you tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Member Wheeler, and the rest for that. Next item is adoption of the agenda. Yeah, go ahead.
Before we move on, I want to clarify that Member Wheeler was referring to the minutes of the 126th workshop.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and do you want to vote to whether to approve the 112 meeting minutes?
Probably we should do that, absolutely, to make it clear that we were, I always assumed that that was in there, but yeah, separate vote for the other item. Do I hear a motion for that?
So move.
Second? Okay. Do we have a broadcast? Do we have any public comments out there?
No, sir, there is no public comment at this time. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Robin, if you'll make another roll call, please.
Member Wheeler,
Aye.
Member Jacobson,
Aye.
Member Miles,
Aye.
Member Crow,
Aye.
Member Fultz,
Aye.
and Chair Porter.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
All right. And Robin, thank you for keeping us on track on that. You're absolutely correct there. Adoption of the agenda. Have a motion for that?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. And I guess we need a public comment on that if we're adopting something.
No, sir, there is no public comment at this time. The
All
floor
right.
is yours.
Good deal. Thank you very much. So Robin, another roll call on that?
Okay, Member Wheeler,
Aye.
Member Jacobson,
Aye.
Member Miles,
Aye.
Member Crow,
Aye.
Member Fultz,
Aye.
Is there something
And Chair-
personal you want to talk?
Chair Porter.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Okay. So right on top of the mark here, we have state of the utility.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Member Fultz.
Yeah. Go ahead. We have
Member Crow has a question.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up with the amendment that we voted on a minute ago. I wrote up my comments, my notes on the meeting that last time that he referred to. So before this meeting's over tonight, I'd like to have a chance to address that, what the points were made, and follow up to see what we can do in the future on that. Okay?
We'll put that in member comments at the end.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Brown. State of the utility. Always my fun time of the year or month.
Oh, my Chairman Porter, members of the UAB, Tom Brown, Chief Operating Officer for GRU. Seems like we were just here a couple weeks ago for some reason.
Yes.
Month really passes by. I think you, in your package, you got the State of Utility report and includes an update from the solar project, as well as a request for coal, which we still haven't purchased any coal yet. It was a pretty unremarkable month per se. Outside of January was colder, and I think you saw that we sold a lot more megawatts this January than we did January a year ago, as well as we had increased gas sales. From a safety perspective, we did have 2 recordables for the month. One was a fellow was attempting to post some warning signs and accidentally stapled his hand instead of a sign.
Oh, geez.
With thumb, yeah, and it went into the bone. It was pretty serious, but yeah. I'm not sure what he said when you do those kind of things, but it was probably more than ouch. We had another employee that got sawdust in his eye while cutting some tree branches down. He was wearing safety goggles and still got him behind it. So beyond that, like I said, it was a pretty unremarkable month. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them.
Just a question of interest because I'm a geek. The load profile for the month, it's got a distinct double hump to it. Have we ever had a morning hump where it reached the peak
Ooh,
instead of the afternoon?
you know what? I'm going to let Mr. DeLeo answer that question because I don't have an answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yes, sir. Chair Porter, board members, this is Dino DeLeo, Energy Supply Officer. The answer to that question is yes, and we had several of those in the January, February timeframe. When you have cold weather in the morning and you get close to a freeze, you will see a peak that will be greater than what you will see at the end of the day, or 6 o'clock when people get home. And we had several of those in the 340 to 345 range
Gotcha.
when we
All
got
right.
freezing.
Yeah. Thanks, Dino. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes, go ahead, Member Wheeler.
I appreciate staff's preparing the solar report for us. Obviously, a lot of us have a keen interest in this project. I'll note for the record that the Gainesville Planning Commission is going to be having a special exception permit hearing on this matter on February 17th at 6 p.m.
February 17th, 6 p.m. All right, I'll make a note of that. And where will that be? Do you know, Member Wheeler?
I don't have that information with me, no.
Gotcha.
But perhaps staff may know. If not, I'll follow up.
Okay, thanks.
I don't have the exact location.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'm assuming county offices somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Any other details of note, Mr. Brown?
No, sir.
All right. I noticed that your outages between the different, you've got Kelly plant down, and you're staging the gas conversion for Deer Haven to make sure that that's done before you start up the second phase of the conversion.
That'd be correct. Yeah, phase one is complete. All the hardware installation was done during the first outage, and they're actively engaged in putting the skids in, running pipes, and all the control wiring and things. And we'll probably have another short outage, I think, to tie it all in, tie the wiring all in. Sometime
Gotcha.
Late April, correct, Dino?
I think that's what you said in the notes there.
Sir, it would be May. Won't be until Kelly actually returns. So it'll
Right.
be contingent upon the combined cycle Kelly plant returning. So you have the combustion turbine for CT4 returning in April. You have the Unit 8 commissioning to be in May. And once Kelly is up and stable and running, then we'll be able to take Unit 2 off, as Mr. Brown mentioned, necessary to tie in both the gas and the controls aspects of phase 2.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much on that.
Kelly looks a whole lot different than it did.
I bet.
They've made some amazing progress in just a few short weeks. A tremendous amount of pre-planning went into this outage, and they have the steam turbine completely removed. A lot of the piping cut, prepped, and actually the generator rotor's out. Next week they'll take the stator out as well. So all you have is the base platform left, pretty much. So,
Yeah. Well, I'll have to take time to get out there again. I still use the pictures that I took the first time in one of my classes. The nameplate on the Kelly plant, no, the Deer Haven, I still use as one of my homework questions. Can you prove from the stuff on the nameplate that the data is correct? Right. So anyway, on to the next item. I got to get back to my meeting agenda. Any other comments about the state of the utility?
Yeah, I have a question
Yeah, go ahead.
here. Every month I read this fascinating study, and I'm not sure of some of the acronyms. What is the fiscal year of GRU?
our fiscal year starts October 1st through September 30th.
October 1st through September 30th. Okay, a number of the data columns are reported in fiscal year. I wasn't quite sure what that was. What does ASA stand for? I don't know. I don't recognize that one.
Yes.
Which page is that one on? Can you tell me?
Well, I'm not sure here.
I don't have the report right in front of me, so I apologize.
No, I guess I'll have to wait till next meeting, I guess.
I don't know. Do you remember what AFA is? I can't write. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on that
Well,
one.
no, sir, I don't remember. I mean, what it's applicable to. It's nothing in energy supply that I'm referred to.
Okay.
All right.
I'll be doing a presentation later on boundaries, and I will have that answer for you before that presentation, sir.
I did have one substantive question, though. I too was interested in the percentage availability numbers, which I think are quite important. And obviously, as you know, they go up and down here in this report. I was going to suggest that in the future, you might want to have a note column in the bottom or something, sort of to indicate in a narrative way what we're seeing when we see these ups and downs.
Okay. Typically what you would see there is it would tie into the supplemental outage reports for the units.
Mhm.
But we can expand on that a little bit if you'd like.
A little narrative would help indicate what we're seeing
Sure.
here. Thank you.
If I may step in here, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Member Wheeler.
Mr. Crow, are you saying ASA?
ASA, yeah.
AF or ASA?
AS and saying.
ASA, he's referring to residential ASA and business ASA under call center volume, customer operations metrics, summary January 2021 on page CSS1. So you can check it and get back to us.
I will get back to you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Meeting agenda, that brings us down to new business. And the new business is a resolution authorizing extension of the existing credit facility with respect to GRU's taxable commercial paper. And sorry, but reading through that, I came to the phrase that I thought I'd never read and something I would vote for, and it was something relating to taking the Fifth Amendment. And it's actually the Fifth Amendment of this original document, which made me read further, which was all good because it made me read. So anyway, take it away for somebody that will give us a serious discussion of this.
Hey, Mark, you're on mute.
Sorry. Mr. Chair, as you're aware, GRU maintains a mix of fixed and variable rate debt. It's not feasible for the utility to market their variable rate bonds without supporting liquidity facility agreements. These agreements provide funds to pay principal amounts that are due upon maturity of the variable rate debt in the event of a market disruption that precludes our ability to remarket the debt. And tonight on your agenda, we have two items that address liquidity facilities that are due to expire this year. This first one is, as you mentioned, it's the facility on our taxable commercial paper. It expires in August. It's provided by State Street Bank. PFM, our financial advisor, has been working with State Street to negotiate an extension of the facility, and State Street has agreed to a 4-year extension at a cost that is 3 basis points less than the rate on the existing agreement. And so staff is requesting that the Utility Advisory Board recommend to the Commission that they approve the attached resolution authorizing an extension of the existing credit facility, as well as the form of the amendment to the credit agreement for the credit facility and the fee letter.
So if I may, basically you're just extending the time frame out for an existing facility we're already using, and the cost of that extension is actually less than what we're paying now.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Comments from the floor, from the other members?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Member Wheeler.
So the only question I have, and I think you just answered it, is that this does not increase our financing cost at all. It just renegotiates the term to a longer term. It does not add any additional interest payments from GRU. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. This simply extends the life of the existing credit facility agreement.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, for your note, we have somebody in the audience, I believe, who wants to speak to us after member comments.
Okay. All right. So, any other discussion on this item?
Yes, what accounts for that rate going down?
Well, the rate going down is, it's relative to the time frame in which we had negotiated the prior agreement. If you recall, we came to the UAB and the City Commission last year on this item. It was expiring about a year ago. As that was the time of COVID. Entities that did not have liquidity facility agreements were trying to get them. A lot of those that did already have them were drawing down on them. So there was a lot of pressure on the balance sheet of the banks that were providing those. So the cost at that point in time was relatively high. And I think we mentioned to you that we were doing a short extension of a year because we felt like the price that we were being quoted at that time were higher than they might be a year from now when the banks had some time to work out some of these issues through COVID, and that's what's happened. The rate has come down 3 basis points from where we were a year ago.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mark, if I could add, I mean, you could probably pick points every month, virtually every day, and you'd see variation on that depending on who's bidding, who isn't, cost of funds, the whole thing. So, yeah, I mean, your comment, Merry Christmas, is probably appropriate. There's probably not a lot of science to that. We just need to get the extension.
Yeah.
Not diminishing your work, Mark. I'm sorry. That's not what I'm.
No problem, man. I'm used to it.
Howard, do you have a comment? Okay.
All right. Do I hear any other comments or maybe a motion on the floor?
Do we take public comment before or after the motion?
No, after the motion.
Okay. I move to approve staff's recommendation.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
All right, thanks. All right, so we have a motion and a second. And do we have a member comment to the motion or a comment from the floor on the motion?
We have public comment. Are you prepared for that now?
Public comment. I didn't know if the floor was public comment. No, there was no public comment at this time.
It's
It's yours.
We have
All
one
right,
in person. We have one.
Might have one in the conference room?
Yes, we do. And just if I may clarify, I believe Robin is timing this. Is that correct, Robin?
I will. This is a new one for me, but I will.
Well, I have a start button here and I think it works. We'll find out.
All right,
Please.
go
sir,
ahead with the public comment.
If you address it, go ahead and
Hi,
speak.
my name is Donald Shepard. I call myself the public representative. What my comment here about this is that this here is something that they have been sending letters out. GRU sending letters out to homeowners. I just came through talking to the gentleman, and he said that is it true that because of the terminology of the electric bill stating in the letter that if your bill is above 300, whatever water use or electric use you use, then goes the full year? And so that's my question. Is that so? Also, I'm glad to hear that there's coming down on the electric, but also I think that the money that Ed Borowski said that was coming back to the public, to the customers, I haven't heard any customers telling me that it had came back to them in a check or in their bill. And so until I see that, I can't speak about that, but I'm speaking in their behalf. Well, where are these checks? The other about the question I just asked.
Okay. So if I could clarify, your question is
Is it that are the public customers, are they going to have to pay the same amount the rest of the year that they pay in January and February?
would staff like to address that question?
I can clarify a couple things and staff can probably add on to it. Again, Mr. Shepard, appreciate your comment. Usually comments of your sort are the general at the beginning of the meeting or at the end. And we were supposed to be just talking to that motion that was on the floor. But I can see that the public might be confused about that issue, but the bill is only your water bill that takes the wintertime max.
And
That
that
it goes for the
customer-
rest of the year. That only relates to your water and wastewater bills. Excuse me, wastewater bills.
Okay, so let's curb that until the end of the meeting, when we can take and, have the answer to this, question. And, let's do that.
Okay.
So that you can gather the information and get the proper answers for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd.
Okay. Okay. All right. We've had discussion. We have a motion. So on to you, Robin. Take a roll call on that approval on that motion or not.
Okay, Member Wheeler,
Aye.
Member Jacobson,
Aye.
Member Miles,
Aye.
Member Crow,
Aye.
Member Fultz, and Chair Porter.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously.
All right. Which brings us to our next fiscal item.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this item relates to the credit facility that supports our variable rate 2007 Series A revenue bonds. It is also provided by State Street Bank, and it is scheduled to expire on April 1st. Once again, PFM negotiated a 4-year extension with State Street at a cost of 54 basis points, which is 3 basis points higher than the existing agreement. We are requesting that the UAB recommend to the City Commission they approve the attached resolution authorizing an extension of the existing liquidity facility, as well as the form of the amendment to the facility and the fee letter.
All right. I'll go ahead and ask because I'm sure somebody else will also, but why'd it go up?
Well, this one was last negotiated 3 years ago.
Okay.
So we've only had
All right.
a 3 basis point increase over 3 years. So we were, as well as extending that the prior year agreement was a 3-year agreement. We've moved it to a 4-year. So we're very happy with that rate.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that, Mark. And any other questions from the floor?
I have a question. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, we're good.
I would like to have Mark clarify commercial paper, because I think we don't think about it quite the same as a line of credit. But my understanding is it's a line of credit. There's no repayment of principal unless we voluntarily repay principal. And I'm just clarifying that, if that is the case, for the benefit of the group.
Yeah, commercial paper is it's a short-term instrument. It can have a maturity of up to 270 days. And when we issue commercial paper, we actually do set an amortization schedule for the principal. You're correct in that it can roll over continuously, but we do set amortization pieces where we amortize that principal down. It is as it is with our other variable rate instruments, it rolls over, like I said, anywhere from 1 to 270 days. And generally, when they roll over, we remarket it. We use the principal from the remarketing to pay the principal and interest due on the piece that has just matured. But we do actually set amortization schedules for the commercial paper when we first draw down a new piece on an issue.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments from the floor?
Just as a follow-up, if I may, to follow up on Member Davis's question. So this paper, it's just basically there if we need it for liquidity, if we're going to pay off from principal. Otherwise, we don't use it. Is that, I mean, it's just there as a reserve. Is that how, am I understanding that correctly?
It serves two purposes. We actually, in the past, we have issued commercial paper and we use the proceeds to fund capital projects. It is also, as you just pointed out, Member Wheeler, a liquidity tool. We try to ladder our liquidity. We have lines of credit with Truist Bank that we can access within a 24-hour period. The next step out is the commercial paper. We can generally draw down on a line of credit within 30 days. And then if we have to go farther, we can issue our fixed rate debt, which generally takes us 60 to 90 days to get to market. So you're correct in that it is a liquidity tool. It's there for our financial flexibility, but we can and have used it in the past as a debt vehicle to provide proceeds to fund capital projects.
All right. Any other comments? Member Crow.
Yeah. Do you have a specific targeted activity for this new round? Certain projects?
On the commercial paper?
Yeah.
We actually don't have any commercial paper outstanding at this point in time. We have two lines, a taxable line and a tax exempt line of credit that we are authorized, but we currently don't have any issued.
Well, if this goes through, do you have specific projects that you want to fund with it?
No, this is the liquidity facility that supports the taxable commercial paper. This isn't an actual issuance of commercial paper itself.
Okay.
This is the facility that you're required to have in place in the event that you ever do issue your commercial paper.
Yeah, I think, hey, Mark, I think it got a little confusing there when you started talking about commercial paper versus the credit facility that you were asking about. I mean, I think that goes more to the question asked previously, and that is that typically the credit facility is not going to be drawn down, right?
We have only had, not only commercial paper, but our other credit facilities, we've only had a draw on a credit facility once, and that was in 2008 in the wake of the recession, when the short-term capital markets got stuck for about a week. We couldn't remarket paper then, but you're right. Typically, we would not have to draw down on these backup liquidity facilities, and we hope we never have to, but they still have to be in place for you to issue the variable rate debt that they support anyway.
So yeah, you literally can't have dysfunction in an organization like this unless you get banks that backstop it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Thank you for those comments. Any other comments from the floor? Anybody engender a motion?
Move to approve staff's recommendation.
I've got a motion. How about a second?
I got a second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Let's see. Before we go to a vote, we have to ask, any public comments on this motion only?
No, Mr. Chair, there are no comments at this time. The floor is yours.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, it's all you. Robin, call out the roll for this one.
Okay, Member Wheeler,
Aye.
Member Jacobson,
Aye.
Member Miles,
Aye.
Member Crow,
Aye.
Member Foltz. Aye. And Chair Porter.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously.
All right. Now, I know that the money part's a serious part of the business and everything, but I can't help but be a little bit more excited for the next item. We're going to talk about maps. Right. So sorry, Mark, Claudia.
That's okay. You're not hurting my feelings.
Right. So our next item on here is GRU service area maps and extension policies.
Thank you, Chairman Porter, members of the UAB, Tom Brown, Chief Operating Officer for GRU. I'm going to be presenting this item tonight. Just as a little bit of a brief history of it, it's an interesting item. I think about 6 or 8 months ago, City Commission made a request of staff to bring back maps of our various service territories for the different utilities. Staff complied with that request and submitted the item. And based on what the request was, we put it on consent on the City Commission. During the consent approval, the item was pulled by the mayor because there was a desire by a commissioner to actually create a policy that would require CityCom approval before any expansion could occur on our utilities. And since it was going to involve a policy decision, the mayor wants the UAB to review the issue since it does involve possibly the creation of a policy. So the City Commission is asking the UAB for an opinion on whether a policy is necessary, and if so, what the policy might look like. So with that, I have a brief presentation that we put together, staff puts together with a recommendation at the end, and we can go from there. I'm going to see how I can do there. Now, once I put this presentation on my screen and share it, I'll be blind. So if you have a question, you'll have to tell me. So I'm going to pull this up and see if I can still find the button to hit the share button. Come on. Like you.
While you're doing that, I'll mention that I understood you can't be in 2 places at one time, but apparently Rick Hutton is able to do that because I see that he's got two screens up. How do you do that, Rick?
Do I really? Man, you've discovered my secrets.
Yeah. No wonder Tony likes you as an employee.
Yeah, if I could just figure out how to get 2 paychecks.
Oh, no, no, can't do that.
That's going to go check. Mark's going to be checking for that now. And Clyde.
Yeah, they are.
Hey, I have the presentation right here ready to go if you'd like me to just pull it up for you.
Do that because I'm having some technical difficulties pulling it up and then getting back to the meeting so I could share my screen. So if you would just go to the first slide, I would be eternally grateful and in your debt.
No, we just did all the debt we could for tonight.
Oh no.
Jeez, God.
You did have a project.
Yeah.
Can you all see that?
Not yet.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'm having technical difficulties too. Bear with me. Hang on.
For what it's worth, 3 of us here in the room have it on our laptops, but it's not on the screen. I mean, we brought agendas with us.
Just give me a sec. I got it. Let's see.
I've got my issue.
Sorry, Tom.
I said I think I might have my issue squared away if you want me to try it again.
Yeah, because as soon as Jean leaves.
As I say that.
Are they using Zoom?
Presentation up. I can't get the meeting back to.
I know how to do that. Screen share. Do you know how to do Zoom?
He does. He just hasn't heard them go back before. He's got the program.
Oh, I see.
He's trying to figure out how to hit the share screen and still look at the program.
Okay, I got it, Tom.
You do.
I think.
I can't wait for things to get back to normal.
Nor can I.
Well, it looks like oh, there you go.
There
All
we
right.
go. I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
All right.
You're on the second slide, so I think we can start there. The first map basically is a summary map, and it shows all the various utilities and the boundaries of those utilities. And you can see that they they're not all the same. You can see the purple in the middle is our reclaimed service territory, so to speak, and we have no real plans to expand on that. And also, I think it's important to note that the gray area within those boundaries is actually the city limits. And the real issue for the city commission is that, GRU provides utility services both inside the city boundaries and outside the city boundaries. And they want approval for the expansion outside of their boundaries. They already have it within the boundaries. The red line is the electric service line, and the water is the blue line, and almost layered over top of that is a brown line, which is the sewer service area, the wastewater service area. So those are our various territories. Like, again, the boundaries don't quite line up with each other. And of course, the yellow is the gas line, and the gas goes way out up into Alachua. So why don't we go through and I'll explain a little bit about each utility, because they're a little bit unique, and coming up with a universal policy for all of them has its challenges and may or may not be necessary depending on where you come down on this. So if you can go to the next slide, Robin. Okay, again, here's the red line is the electric service territory. The gray within that are the city limits. And with regard to the electric service, it's highly regulated. The Florida PSC, Public Service Commission, would regulate any change in our service boundary territory. What's not shown here is we have a little bit of donut in there. That's where the university is that Duke supplies.
Tom, I thought we just got it. I thought we picked it up.
Well, I think that's what our instructions were. We haven't quite got there yet.
Okay.
But there is no unclaimed territory with regard to electric service in the state. You'll either have Duke around us or Clay or FPL surrounding or Seminole. They'll all have right up to our border. So any change or expansion in the border per se would require a consent from those other utilities, some sort of an agreement, which you would end up having to buy that territory from them, and also a consent from the PSC. So as far as getting any additional consent from the city commission for approval, that would already be baked in, because any kind of change would involve a substantial amount of money to buy service territory from somebody else. And we would certainly go back to city commission to ask for that approval. I think you can move on to the next segment.
So Tom, basically what you're saying is that you've already got a de facto policy for electric that would already require approval. So it's not really necessary to come up with a policy for that.
That would be our opinion. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think too, part of this is you might have to think about what's the definition of an expansion, because certainly connecting customers to an existing transmission line or distribution line, while it does expand your customer base, I wouldn't think that would rise to the level of what they would be interested in as an expansion. Mm-hmm. And the same with some of the other lines, some of the other services. The next one is the gas service area. And you see it's not quite as concise as the electric. We do have a line that's run up into Alachua for service. Again, this particular, it's regulated by the Public Service Commission. It's not quite the same as electric in that there's no gas service areas per se, but if another gas company tried to come in and put lines near us or go over top of us, it would require the PSC to get approval of that before they could do that. So we couldn't go in and take somebody else's territory or area that's being by somebody else, and they couldn't do that to GRU as well. So it's not quite controlled to the same extent, and not all the land is clearly occupied by gas lines in the state. So it's a little bit looser, I guess is the word I might be looking for on that. But here again, any type of expansion of the gas service where we had to lay any significant amount of lines would require a significant amount of capital to lay those larger lines in before you would attach customers on. And here again, it would be a budgeted line item. It would be a project that we would bring back to the City Commission for approval before we would go forward with that project.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So just for clarification, you said that you couldn't expand if there was competing gas companies around. Or in general, any gas utility couldn't. But do we have competing gas companies that would prevent GRU from moving out around anywhere around the county?
Wes, your mic is fading in and out. If you want to try that again, try your mic a little bit closer.
Yeah. So are there any gas utilities that are competing with Gainesville that would prevent us from expanding out? Mr. Brown said that we couldn't, or a utility couldn't if there was other gas companies. I mean, do we have that kind of constraint here in Gainesville or in Letcher County?
There are other gas companies in the state that have gas lines run, in particular out near Newberry, in that area there. I think we've got Florida Gas Utilities is out there. They've expressed an interest, but you know, gas lines are very expensive to put in, and we don't do it unless there's enough customers and enough expected service on that line to justify the capital investment.
Okay. And I'm going to ask this question later, but I'll set you up. You talk about significant on a later slide. The utility can't make significant extensions, but I'm not quite sure where you draw the line on what's significant and what isn't. And while I'm still on this map, what is that why is the former Georgia Pacific plant located in Putnam County shown?
I don't have an answer, Member Wheeler.
I was just curious because I saw it there. And I thought, well, what is that all about?
It probably goes all the way back to when it was Gainesville Gas, right? Didn't GRU buy Gainesville Gas? If I got the title wrong, I might not have the name exactly right, but it used to be a private company, and so they probably had a line out there for that very heavy duty industrial user. I would imagine GP used a lot of gas for that plant when it was going full bore. So it probably was all the way back from that time frame.
So it's not servicing now? It's not a current service area?
I don't think that plant's operating. Is it?
Why is it on the map?
I'm not aware that it is.
Right. Well, once you have a service area, I don't think the service area goes away unless you apply to have it removed. So it's probably just a legacy service area.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can look and try to find the answer for you all.
It's not the end of the world, but it's just curious. It's
yeah.
up there.
Okay, well, Robin, if you next slide, please. And this is the reclaimed water service area that I mentioned before. It's in purple. There are no real plans to expand the reclaimed water service area for a number of different reasons. One of them really is a change in focus from taking our reclaimed water and using it for irrigation versus using that reclaimed water to replenish the Florida aquifer. And recently we applied for a project to create a wetland on the west side of, I guess actually outside of town, to use our reclaimed water there. So we would actually get credit for recharging the aquifer with that water. And it's going to become more of an issue it's part of our permitting process, part of our permitting requirements for our water withdrawal permits going forward. And so we don't expect any significant expansion on there. Rick Cotton, you're on here. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
I think you pretty well covered it, Tom. I mean, like, as you know, we had come to you guys before with that recharge wetland project, which is another way of using reclaimed water, but it's the recharge wetland's a lot more cost effective than irrigation. So, you know, as Tom had said, we don't anticipate significantly expanding that irrigation area. It's kind of targeted to a part of town that tends to require a lot of irrigation, so it's able to offset the use of groundwater. But in the future, we're moving more and more towards doing the recharge, in part because it's a lot more cost effective.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Member Wheeler.
So just to follow up on one of the comments Rick just made. So do we have any large irrigation users that would make sense to extend reclaimed water that we could reduce water use consumption, freshwater ground withdrawals? I mean, do we have a list, a plan for any major users to extend to them?
Well, at this time, so some of the larger users we do provide to is the Hale Plantation Golf Course is one of the users in that southwest area. I mean, most of the use is residential irrigation type use. At one time, you know, we had even considered maybe extending out to Gainesville Golf and Country Club, but that's a really long extension and a really expensive project. So, you know, when you look at the cost benefit of doing that, it's doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Yeah, effectively, Rick, you make the wetland your big user, right?
Right. And you know, the benefit of that is as Tom said, you're recharging the aquifer. So that's putting water back that, you know, you pulled out.
Yeah. So they're really going along with your thought, Member Wheeler. They are looking for big users, and big users of the wetland.
Okay. Next slide, Robin.
Oh,
I think
sorry.
you fell asleep.
No, I bear with me. For some reason, not advancing.
Here we go.
There you go.
Did I go too far?
Whoa.
Is that,
No,
It's
that's
good.
Real big.
That's great.
okay, sorry. No.
So this is our water service territory, and the line that you're looking at there is the urban cluster line, essentially. That's been agreed to by the city and the county. And to actually move beyond that line requires the consent of the county. So we wouldn't move that unilaterally, but there is a concern or an issue here whereby if a developer were to want to build a development, let's say outside the urban cluster and outside the city limits, they could go to the county and get their approval, and they pay for all the expansion in their development. They pay for the lines that would connect into the GRU system. But that could actually be done without any involvement by the city commission. Within the city boundaries, we would certainly still have to get any kind of approval there for any kind of major development. But outside the city limit, even in that white area, I guess inside the boundary and outside the boundary, it's not so much. So I think that may be the concern of the commissioner, that they want to have approval of those types of expansions. And we'll address that in our recommendation. The next slide, Robin. That's the same slide. I think they just had blown it up, right? So
Yeah.
I think we can move on to the wastewater service area. And the boundary on the wastewater service area is very similar to the water, you know, the urban cluster line, not quite identical. They don't quite overlap, but they're very, very close. The same issues with the wastewater service. As far as expanding it, we would have to get permission, I think, to do that from the county before we would expand those lines. But outside the city limits, not so much. So it's the same issue as far as getting permission to do that. The city commission, I think, wants to have a part of the approval process to expand the urban cluster line or go outside those limits and expand with that. Rick, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
So I can add a little bit. I mean, some of the context of that is that, you know, the county implemented that urban cluster line, I think, starting back in the 1990s. And that was really, the intent of it was to try to control urban sprawl. So the idea that the county has is, so it requires county commission approval to extend water or wastewater utilities beyond that line. And that way they can use that as a mechanism to prevent, you know, urban development on the other side of that line. And as Tom said, it's what is shown on the map. That brown line is our current wastewater service area, which really is it's basically a line drawn around where we have facilities right now. The urban cluster line goes just a little bit beyond that, not a lot, but in the southwest, it's a little bit further. It extends a little bit further. Oakmont subdivision is located. Parker, in the Oakmont subdivision, Parker Road is the western boundary of the urban cluster line. So, like I said, the purpose of that line was the county created in order to try to control sprawl. I think, as I understand it, at least some of the city commissioners feel like, well, they'd like to have that ability to prevent, an extension past that area if the county decided to allow it.
Right, and both the lines, I mean, it's the county's approval to move it. There's no other legislative entity that really has any kind of control over that line. But I think from an environmental perspective too, not allowing us to expand in those areas, their alternative for a developer is to put septic systems in wells, which is really counter to what the desire is to be environmentally friendly, utilization of the resources. So it's urban sprawl versus septic tanks and wells. So with that, why don't you move on to the next slide, Robin?
Mr. Chair, I do have a quick question on this map as well.
Mr. Chair, before you go to that slide, I realize that we're talking about expanding the boundaries, but I'm somewhat concerned that we're not actually thinking about a business model that would expand our sewer system specifically within the boundaries. I know of one subdivision that's within 1 mile of the Main Street facility that's on septic tanks. And so I guess that's not the topic here today, but I'd love to hear Rick Hutton address that.
So
it's complicated than what you might first think, and it has to do with, cost recovery and the cost of putting those lines and service in and connection fee.
You're breaking up, Tom.
I could give you, well, Tom's breaking up. I'll take the opportunity to jump in. But we do have a fair amount of septic tanks in the city or in our service area. And, there's several. It's particularly difficult and expensive to go back and retrofit existing neighborhoods with septic tanks. I mean, go retrofit existing neighborhoods with sanitary sewer. We are working right now. We have some grant money from the state to do some conversions of septic to sewer, particularly in areas where there's potential impacts to some of the creeks. So we're working on that right now, but I will tell you, it is very expensive. Generally, where we can provide that extension, you will usually find the cost to be somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 per house or more in order to go back and retrofit areas. So cost is really a big factor. The other thing too is with wastewater, wastewater has to flow downhill generally. So a lot of neighborhoods, if they're developed without wastewater infrastructure, a lot of times the elevations are such that it's really hard to serve them. So there are some subdivisions that, have been identified, and occasionally people have, come to us and said, hey, we're interested in maybe connecting. But when they see the cost, it becomes impractical in a lot of cases. So our focus right now is really to kind of try to get areas where either it's where there is an opportunity to connect people at relatively low cost or areas where there's really a particular environmental problem.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Member Miles has a request to speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please. First of all,
And turn your mic on. We can't hear you very well, Carla.
I'm sorry, you got me now?
Yeah, good.
I want to first of all make sure that Tom's all right and that he's going to pop on and finish this presentation. And then I also want to just make sure that I got the right thing, because we started talking about septic and a whole lot of other stuff. So this particular this is gonna end in a request for the city commission wants to create an approval process for whenever we expand. Not that we're getting ready to expand, not that there's something in the pipeline. They just wanna create a process that requires their approval for when we expand past those boundaries. Am I?
That's essentially correct, and we'll, there's a good place to address that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And I
just making
apologize,
sure
my
'cause-
internet connection got unstable for some reason.
Okay, because I was reading the resolution and the recommendation, and then I was trying to tie it into the conversation that we were actually having, and I couldn't seem to do that. But now I'm back on track.
Sorry.
Are we ready for the next slide?
I think so, but I think Tom's frozen again.
Okay, let me add one thing, and that is that we're looking to do this just for the water and the wastewater because, as Chair Porter said, there's de facto policy, in the other areas.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Just again, looking
Yeah.
at these maps.
Go ahead. Make sure your mic's on so we can hear.
It is, can you hear me? The mic is on. Our mic is, can you hear me? Have we lost the Zoom?
Yeah,
meeting?
no, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The north part, I see the northern sections of the city are not included, actual municipal boundaries, not included in the water and wastewater service areas. So I know that's not the urban boundary. I'm looking up along County Road 231 in that area. Why is the line not contiguous to the city boundary?
I apologize, Rick. I mean, my
Oh,
internet
well,
connection's going crazy.
yeah.
So
Good question. So as I mentioned before, this line that you see on the map is kind of our service area, and that's not like a designated territory. That's basically looking at a map of our wastewater collection system and drawing a line around it. And so that, I guess we don't really have shown what the urban cluster line, which is a political line, but this line is just drawing a line of where we have utilities right now. So if you're looking to the northeast of that line, as you said, on County Road 231, that area is not developed. So we don't have wastewater lines in that area. Now, if it develops, we would have the ability to extend water and wastewater into that area to serve it.
Because that is part of the service boundary.
It's within the city of Gainesville, and so
Yeah.
we definitely have the ability to serve anywhere in Gainesville, and we could serve anywhere in Gainesville, and then anywhere within this designated urban cluster line. And of course, as we discussed, what's at issue here is the question about, well, if somebody wants to extend beyond the urban cluster line, they already have to get permission from the county, but what's being discussed would they would also have to get permission from the city commission too.
right. Rick, I think, why don't you take a minute and just talk about our policy relative to expansion, because we don't build it and hope they come.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. That's good thought. So, that is a good point. Water and wastewater infrastructure is very expensive, particularly relative to the commodity. So our policy, which is pretty common to other utilities throughout the state and the United States, is that if a developer comes in, they want to connect to our system, they have to pay for the extending the water and sewer lines to get to their development. And they also have to pay what we call connection charges, which that is a charge that essentially reimburses us for the capital that we spend in expanding our plants to be able to handle additional growth. So the mantra is growth has to pay its own way for water and wastewater.
Ostensibly, Rick, they pay for the next portion of the next plant that would have to be built, right?
That is what that connection charge is. So we're saying, yeah, we recognize that we have to keep expanding our plants, and some of our backbone components need to be expanded sometimes. And so that's what that connection charge is. But essentially, if you were going to build a new subdivision, we would say, okay, you gotta submit plans for that subdivision that has all the drawings where the pipes are going to be. We're going to review your plans. Once we approve your plans, then you go build it, and we'll inspect it, and eventually we'll take ownership of it. But you got to pay to build it.
Yeah, and then we also get into issues that drive the designers crazy, and that is, depending on how far you expect expansion to go, do you put a 6-inch water line in, you put an 8-inch water line in? The developer that's connecting on now may only need a 6, but if there's going to be another one going down the road, you want to pay an 8, but they only want to pay for a 6. So do you invest the extra money to put the 8-inch or not, thinking you're actually going to expand down that area. So Bristol with a few design considerations as well. Hopefully things got a little more stable. Robin, you want to go to the next slide? Okay, so just in summary, each utility is a little bit different. On the electric side, we've got established electric territories. Extension of electric service beyond territories requires modification of those electric territories, which I said really was PSC approval along with some sort of agreement with that neighboring utility. And the capital expenditure to complete the process would also require city commission approval just because of the magnitude of it involved in. Gas is very similar in the sense that any significant expansion or extension would require approval of the investment by the city commission and also approval by the PSC for that proposed service to make sure it doesn't encroach on somebody else's gas lines that are in the area. Next slide, Robin. Water, wastewater, these are the two that we've been talking about that maybe are a little bit different. Right now, the extension of the water, wastewater beyond the current service boundary lines does not require approval of city commission since inside the city limit. Alachua County Code includes an urban cluster line, more or less coincides with the water waste boundary, service boundary. Any extension of the water wastewater facilities beyond the urban cluster line requires approval from the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners. A recommendation of adding a requirement to the city commission approval when extending water wastewater facilities. So I think you can go to the next slide, Robin. Okay, so the recommendation that we had come up with was that the city commission to direct staff to establish a process that requires any extension of the water wastewater services beyond the Alachua County urban cluster line to receive approval from the city commission prior to receiving utility construction permit. So the developer would go to the county and get their permission. They would also come back through our process and we would go to the city commission and get that approval before we would agree to any kind of extension. So that's where staff is with this, but you're welcome to discuss the issue, add to it, or debate it, wherever you think is necessary. I also think a component that needs to be addressed to is really what exactly is an expansion, because it does vary from different groups.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to steal Member Jacobson's thunder here, but we spent a good bit of time discussing whether we as a city should be investing more in gas and expanding gas. And we have a policy here. It's significant expansion or extension. Well, I don't know what significant it is, but I think as a broader policy, do we want to discourage any further expansion or extension if we're going to be going to renewable energy 100% by 2045? Somehow I think we should be addressing that in this policy because obviously if we're increasing gas use, we're moving away from renewables.
All right, any other comments on the floor? Member Jacobson, I think, was next, and then I think I hear Member Miles also.
I appreciate Member Wheeler's comments, but honestly don't think that we need to address that within this policy, because this policy is saying that the city commission has to approve it. So I think any discussion of policy on expansion of natural gas would be outside of this. Actually, my questions were not related to that. Kind of to what Tom was saying of really defining what needs to go to the city commission. Is this going to create something onerous for GRU? For every little, I don't know enough about the details, but are there going to be a lot of little things that suddenly get all held up and people scream because it has to go through the city commission every time?
Yeah,
I could kind of address that. So the county, at least as long as I've been here, the county's very reluctant to allow extensions beyond that urban cluster line. The only exceptions that I'm aware of is every now and then there'll be a church that's just outside the urban cluster that maybe their well's not working well, or they are wanting to expand their church a little bit. There was one existing subdivision that their wells were not producing good water quality, and they got permission from the county to allow expanding in there. So it hasn't been like there's a lot of projects that are going through that, and the county commission is extremely reluctant, or I don't know if they've ever done it, approved this for like a developer coming in and saying, I want to build a subdivision and I want to extend water and wastewater beyond that urban cluster line. I mean, I suppose that could change if the commission completely changed, but in recent history, there hasn't been very many of these.
So your opinion, staff's opinion is that it won't be onerous. That, if a church comes along and wants to do that, that's not a big deal to run it through the city commission.
It will likely be rare.
All right, I think we had a comment from Member Miles, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was basically some of just what Member Jacobson was just talking about. Because you had mentioned earlier that this wasn't intended for like connecting regular services. And I was wondering if you were familiar or if there was any type of evidence or something that happened before to say what type of parameters that they use. What does the county approve? What does those amounts look like? Are they only capital things? This is a certain amount. And I'm like Member Jacobson, because I mean, once you write a policy and create a procedure for something, you have to be clear about what a significant expansion details. And so it's not a question per se, just something to think about, setting some parameters for what significant expansion and what would require approval from the city commission.
All right. Thank you, Member Miles. Any other comments from the?
Chair Porter?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, Tim, hey, how's it going?
Yep, I've been hanging out here. I apologize for my appearance. I am sick. Man, I might have a lot to say about this, but first I want to ask a question, a hypothetical. Could this lead to a situation that the city would only review development requests that had been approved by the county? Is that correct? That this would not lead to a situation where the county says no, and then the city says, yes, we want to do it anyway?
This would, so if anybody, developer or anybody wanted to extend past the urban cluster line, right now it requires county commission approval. What's being proposed is it would include county commission and city commission, but if they didn't get county commission approval, the city commission wouldn't be able to do it anyway, because the county has, that jurisdiction.
Right, that's where I'm going. I don't want to get into a situation where the city wants to extend and the county doesn't, and then it becomes an adversarial kind of thing. And because it's happened before. Generally speaking, I'm not a fan of the county sticking its nose into city business or vice versa. So I was kind of, I kind of gritted my teeth when I started reading about this. But that doesn't sound, too bad. And it doesn't, I'm also thinking about it from a developer perspective. It's another hoop to jump through. I imagine probably another fee to pay. And I'm not real crazy about that, but I'm not sure that I see a whole lot of harm in this, as long as it doesn't end up in create situations where the city and county would butt heads on potential. And we're only talking about extension outside that urban cluster area. So I guess I'll hold off on a lot of what I was going to say, because it doesn't sound that bad. I'm gonna reserve opinion. That's all I have to say for now. Thanks, Chair.
All right, thanks, Tim. Hope you're feeling better.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman?
you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see, do I have the floor here? All right.
Yes, you do. Yeah,
I've
go
got,
ahead.
I've
Member
got
Crow.
two questions, a quickie and a longie. For the quickie, I was interested in the map of natural gas lines. What is the story or the history of the extension of the line to the northwest up to the city of Alachua? Did that come when the natural gas lines were bought, or is there a story behind that? Is something that'd be valuable to know about the background?
Member Crow, I haven't been here long enough to really know. That's just an issue that's never been talked about in my tenure here. Whether it came with when we bought the gas company, or I don't know. I don't think it was something that happened afterwards. But.
Yeah, I hate to be the old guy here, but I think that there's the Sid Martin Biotech, the technical center up there, and that expansion, and it was from the Gainesville gas years ago. That's the service territory came about back when it was Gainesville Gas, and so GRU inherited all that.
And when was that purchased?
Oh gosh, that was purchased. God, I can remember because I had people that worked there. That was had to have been in the 80s.
Oh, all right. Well, that's the quickie. Now for the little longer here. What was the political background to having the city want to take interest in this question? Anybody who reads the Gainesville Sun every day knows very well that there's been a lot of hoopla about the question of extension of development regulations if you have an annexation. That's gone around and around and around. Is that connected with this recommendation that we're looking at tonight, or was there another sort of front page issue that triggered this, or what caused all this interest?
I can say that, Member Crow, that I'm not aware of any front page issue that precipitated this. I mean, when you really look at what we're proposing, it was interesting what Member Rockwell said. Quite frankly, you could have an argument right now between the county and the city, where the county would allow, GRU to move beyond the urban cluster line, and the city would say no. So you could have that exist today. I think and look, I don't even want to take the time to speculate. I shouldn't be a politician. I should be the general manager of the utility, as well as the people that are there, talking on Zoom. I'd ask them not to speculate about that. All
right. Thanks, General Manager. I personally think that this is on face exactly what it is. If you want to extend the service boundary, inform the city first. That's, to me, fairly simple.
Carla has a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a real quick question. Are there, because this policy, again, is just so they can create a procedure for water, wastewater. Has nothing to do with gas, has nothing to do with any of that. Am I correct? That's what the recommendation is, for them to create the water, wastewater policy that states, that requires approval from the city, right? Can you take me back to the recommendation? Okay, an extension of water and wastewater services. Okay, So are there anything other than that that they already have to have joint approval on? Are there any other policies that we have? Because we're just trying to do the wastewater. Are they currently required to approve any other county processes as far as expansion goes, other than the wastewater?
I'm
So I
not
saw
sure I
in
could.
several places it said that this expansion requires the Board of County Commission. Are there any expansions that require the city to approve other than the one that you're asking for now?
I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer beyond, GRU and our utilities, whether there's other services and stuff that require that. There's nothing I'm aware of. And we're really suggesting that it makes sense possibly to look at wastewater, because that's an expansion that right now could occur without City Commission having a voice.
That was my question.
To the extent of electric and gas, they're kind of constrained just by the nature of the business.
Yeah.
Thank you. You answered me perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the floor that I missed so far?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
I understand where we're going with this, and it's just so the city has control over its own services.
Your mic on again there, Member Wheeler?
It's on, and I'm leaning forward.
Thanks. Yeah.
I understand that the city wants to have control over its services, and I agree with that. That's why I'll vote for it. But I still remain concerned that we don't have something in here about addressing the fact that we really don't want to be extending or expanding gas. I just wish there was a note for that. I'm not sure this is a place for it, but if we're addressing water and wastewater, I sure would like for us to say we don't want to see gas being expanded, but I'll leave it go.
All right. Thank you, Member Wheeler. Okay. Comments on the floor? Do I entertain a motion for this recommendation?
I'm making a motion to accept staff recommendation.
All right. Thank you, Member Miles. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All right. We got a second.
I'm sorry, who was the seconder?
It sounded like Barry, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Member Jacobson.
Thank you.
All right. Any further comments or any citizen input on this particular issue?
Mr. Chairman, there's nobody on the lines at this time. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you for keeping track of all of us out there.
Oh, my pleasure.
And excuse me, Robin, if you could call the roll on this vote.
All right, Member Wheeler,
Aye.
Member Jacobson,
You were muted, Barry.
Aye.
Okay, good.
okay, Member Miles,
Aye.
Member Crow,
Aye.
Member Fultz, and Chair Porter.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously.
All right. I thank all the staff for the presentation on that. And again, and the nuances embedded in there. So we're at the, all
Mr.
right.
Chair, I have one more comment for staff.
Go ahead, Member Wheeler, please.
For staff's consideration when they're forwarding this recommendation on, it might be useful if you draw that urban service line on the map when you present it to the City Commission. Just my recommendation.
Yeah. As a connoisseur of fine maps, I think that's a fine suggestion, Member Wheeler. Did you catch that, Rick?
I'm
sorry, I did not.
Basically saying the urban service boundary, if we could actually add that line on the map, it'd be pretty good to have that concurrent line to see where that was in relationship to our service.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. Thanks. All right. Now we're down to, we voted on all the items that are on here. We're down to member comment. And we also had a citizen comment we had to readdress. I hear any member comments from the floor? Yeah, Barry, go ahead, Member Jacobson.
Thank you. I have a member comment. Excuse me. Actually, I wanted to publicly offer an apology to Dino DeLeo for my comments last week. Unfortunately, he's not here. I reached out to him in writing earlier. I was frustrated to hear, GRU staff, talking about natural gas being green. I tend to see red when I hear that. But I know better than to shoot the messenger and, to question his integrity, which I find is above reproach. So I regret doing that, and I do apologize. I also want to apologize to Ed Bilarski, who called me on it, and I doubled down. Again, regret doing that. I know Ed's very tough, thick-skinned after many years of being attacked. I didn't mention his hair, but I did something worse, which was to say things negative about the staff. And again, apologize, and will do my best not to repeat that behavior in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Jacobson. All right, any other member comment? Do I have yeah, go ahead, Member Crow. I think I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to get back to what we talked about earlier, but we have a member of the public here. I'd be happy to defer for a few minutes to let him speak first.
While we do that, Member Crow, I think what you're going to drive at is probably something that needs to be put in our follow-on workshop on that. But anyway, go ahead and think about that. And you're probably right. Our citizen has been sitting there a long time in this meeting. And I believe Ed or Tom or probably somebody in the water thing, I think his question was related to the wintertime max on water, or excuse me, wastewater, and a misconception on citizens that would affect the entire utility bill. That once you had that maximum in the winter, you'd be stuck with that bill all year. I think that's a very good confusing thing that probably needs to be cleared up. So if Citizen Shepherd could get up there and readdress that question, if I have that right, but go ahead.
Yes, I'm Citizen Donald Shepherd, People's Representative, and planning to run for mayor in 2022. And these here are things that I'm learning. So I wanted to address them. That I had a customer of GRU's asking me if their water bill and electric bill that they had gotten in January and February is going to stay at that high rate throughout the rest of the year. And from what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing right, that that is going to be so. Is that correct?
Would staff like to address that question?
Would staff like to answer that?
I can start in on that if staff will back me up on that, but Mr. Shepherd, what happens in the wintertime months is a time when we use the least amount of water outside of our houses for washing cars and things like that. And so that is the time period where they set your wastewater bill, your sewage bill, because all the water they think you're using inside your house. So that only pertains to that thought process, that maximum bill for the year, that's only looking at your wastewater. So if you have a bill that's $300, you have to break it out into water, wastewater, electricity, a stormwater fee, natural gas, whatever, and look at just the wastewater portion of that. And they match that wastewater portion to your wintertime water use and say that your wastewater cannot exceed that for the rest of the year. If your water level goes less than that, your water use goes less than that, your wastewater will go down. But your wastewater bill cannot exceed that wintertime usage pattern. It has nothing to do with electricity or anything else. So thinking that you're stuck with a $300 bill for the whole year because of that manipulation by GRU is not a correct thought process.
I think you did very well, Chair Porter. Although I did hear that the citizen talked about the electric side too. So I'm wondering if, in talking to his friends or neighbors, I think we all know that it was pretty darn cold here in January and February, and if you have electric heat, you know, you may have had some sizable bills in January. I mean, I was thinking I was living in Pennsylvania again. I was not liking it down here. The land of sunshine is cold.
Yeah.
So that might be part of it as well. The other thing to check, I mean, if you you know, we have our energy auditors at the utility, and there's a high water bill. I don't know, maybe, you know, it was cold enough, maybe it froze a pipe or something, and maybe there's a leak in the system, and that's the last time you want to have that is when you're doing the calculation on the winter max. So, you know, I would recommend those people calling up our offices to have an energy audit. Not an energy, but actually a water audit.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I suggested for them to do, is to call your office, Ed Borowski, and take a reply to you directly or your people of your service to take and find out where they are. Take their bill with them when they ask this question. Go to the GRU and ask them the question you have questioned me with, so that you can get the proper answer. I can, as your representative, I can give you what I know and what I think, but this may not be the true answer in which you're asking me to ask the city commission or this board. And so, that's why I came tonight to direct that question to the board and to Ed Borowski, and now we have our answer.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd, for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. And that, I think we're still in member comment. So I think Member Crow had a comment also.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As it was said earlier in the meeting, at our last meeting, I volunteered to collect the comments from the members of the UAB so we could have sort of a unified document that could be presented to staff of GRU that might help look at the table of contents of the next integrated resource plan. And so I typed up my notes that I'd taken at that meeting, and I sent them to everybody. I have a copy here, a 2-page copy. I think everybody has it. We don't really need to sit here and edit it exactly, but it is in everybody's inbox. I'm sure that, you know, Robin sent it out. I would like to see in our next workshop that we devote a certain amount of time to looking at this question of our thoughts on the integrated resource plan. And this 2-page document that I have here, I think provides some items that could be under consideration. We all received the written comments of the chairman, and I think there was another document by the ACEEE, I believe it was. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make here at this time is that if anybody else wants to be on record of what they would like to see in this unified document, by all means, let's get it out on the table. Make sure I get a copy of it, and I'll do my level best to try to incorporate these together in some consolidated format. And if there's anybody that wants to give any guidance to me in preparation of this now, I'm all ears. But I would like to see that we could look at this in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Member Crow. And I think, speaking for myself, that's not one of the items I got to. And so I need to review that for my own comments on it, but that should be definitely a part of our next workshop. And a consolidated draft should probably be an input to our next workshop. So I certainly thank you for corralling all those disparate things and putting them together. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. So any other member comments from the floor for tonight?
Member Rockwell has his hand up. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead, Member Rockwell.
No, that's just from before. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
I have nothing to add at this time.
Right. Thanks. Yeah.
I think he was looking for a lifeline, Chair Porter.
Yeah, I feel for him. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right.
Well, we
I
have
have no
we have one
comments.
additional comment that we have to make. We all have to comment on the chairman's choice of shirt design. I mean, this is, you know, a very memorable sort of evening in the history of Gainesville.
I just want to
Yeah.
I want to make a motion to adjourn. Whenever we get, yeah,
All
whenever we
right.
get to that's all well and good. I've been in conferences all day, so the shirt's nice and
Yeah.
all that good stuff. But if we're done, I'm leaving. Y'all can stay.
Right, right. All right. Member Carla's got a great motion. I hear a second.
Wait, before we adjourn, just one quick thing. Ed sent out, General Manager Belowski sent out a energy policy update. It just came into our mailboxes tonight. I very much appreciate the status update, and I would hope that we talk about it at our workshop, because I'm happy to see that
Yes,
some progress is
absolutely.
being
And
made.
thank you, Ed, for doing that. Thanks, Member Wheeler, for remembering that.
I would like to see this discussed at our next workshop.
Yep. All right, got a motion, and bang goes the gavel. A motion adjourned, meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Y'all have a good.